Like, this was college to me. Literally just being stuck in this bathroom for hours. Putting soap on paper towels, going to class, wiping down the editing equipment. You know, you just feel your dreams just kind of slip out of your hands. So we are here at Golden West College. So this is in Huntington Beach. This is where I went to after high school. So in high school, my OCD got really bad at the end. I was playing sports and really struggled with sports. It was weird because it almost like hit my junior year. And a lot of the fear was just the sweat, my skin breaking out, acne, body odor, smelling. So I barely graduated. I struggled in high school. I remember my mom and dad even saying that they were gonna have like an intervention with me because they were really worried that I wasn't going to go to college. But I ended up choosing this school because it was kind of just like, I don't know, felt like new or fresh. It was different. It was near the beach-ish, and I surfed, and I don't know how to describe the pain of just watching like your dreams kind of fall through the cracks, but that's what I think of when I come here. There was a lot of good memories. Unlike the house, there wasn't always bad memories, but this bathroom that we're about to go to, oh my God. Right here. Oh my God, okay. Just need to mentally prepare a little bit. All right, so this bathroom I know is just a bathroom, but to me this is where I would spend hours. When other kids were like in class, I would feel contaminated, I'd feel dirty, I would sneak away from class, I'd sneak away from projects, I'd sneak against you know, different productions we were on, and I'd go into this bathroom and I would always get stuck on a sink. So I'd use the restroom, pretty normal. I don't remember, actually I take that back. I'd use the restroom and I would have to be very far because I was worried about it splashing back on my clothes. But it always splashed on my clothes, of course. So then I'd come over here, and this was such a ritual for me. So I would use the urinal, think it splashed on me, so then I'd go over here, and I'd get hot water, but it was never really hot enough, but I had to do. And then I would drain it like this, and then wherever I thought pee hit, I'd put soap on. Just don't want to get this all soapy, but I'd put soap on, and then I would do this. Now you got to remember, like, this is a campus, so kids would come in. So then I would freak out thinking I was a weirdo. I'd come into the stall, close it, pretend I was going to the bathroom, but now I felt recontaminated because I just stepped near a urinal. So then they would leave, I'd have to throw this away. I'd pull out more paper towels, put more soap on it, get it soapy again. And I would just be like pleading in my head, like, please nobody come through, please nobody come through. I just need to get this done, and then nobody could come through. But then, you know, there would be a lag because classes would start, but the problem is then I would do this and it wouldn't be good enough. Then I'd have to keep going back, and then this one got dirty, so I'd have to pull. And then finally, if I got myself clean enough, it was hand washing time, which was exhausting. So I would turn on the water, and then I was always pumping so much soap. It wasn't like this. I remember it was like that pink industrial soap. So then I'd have to do my ritual. And I can't do all of it because I have sleeves, but just imagine what I'm doing now. I would do it up until about my elbow. So I'd sit there and it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh my God. This is just too much, dude. Like, it just really brings me back to how I was. Just desperation. And I didn't count out loud like that, but in my head, it was just that same intensity. So I'd pump the soap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'd finally get to 20. And then if I did it correctly, I'd have to rinse where I couldn't touch my hand, but let's say my hand just touched like that, then I'd have to pump it more, and I'd have to start all over again. 1, 2, 3. If somebody walked in the bathroom, now they see all these suds, and I was so embarrassed, so then I'd pretend that I was rinsing, but I couldn't leave because my hands were dirty, so I'd have to sit here and go to the bathroom again because somebody caught me, and then it was back to the paper towels, rip paper towels, dab, 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 finish dabbing, then it was going back to do the hands. And it's like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then if I finished it perfectly, let's say I was able to get it where like that, then what would happen is I'd go to get paper towels, but look, now I have to touch this thing to get the paper towel, which just made my hands dirty again. So then it was back to getting paper towel out, then it was back to pumping soap, pumping soap, pumping soap. And then if I finally, let's say nobody walked in by miracle, this was down, I felt like my clothes was good enough, I would dry my hands, then I would use the paper towel to close, and then I'd throw away the trash, and I'd have to kind of throw it from a distance because I didn't want it to pop back up, so I would throw it away. That was it, and it wasn't just this bathroom, this is one of the bathrooms that I was in. But it was all of the bathrooms. I mean, this was like, as college got worse, this was my college experience. So I dreaded, I didn't drink much water because I dreaded going to the bathroom. I felt like these were like imaginary walls, so if I walked in, I was now contaminated. And I just remember, I mean, just imagine the door shut, but I would just be sitting here like this, so I wouldn't touch anything in the bathroom. And I just remember thinking, please leave, please leave, please leave, please leave. And I would be quiet and listen. And then the worst was you'd come out and somebody would be there. And maybe because they were being quiet. And then I'd have to pretend I needed to go back in here. And I was just like, let me just be here. Let me just be here. Let me just be here. And that was just my years. And I think what was more emotional draining about it is just, you know, you just feel your dreams just kind of slip out of your hands.
I think what Chris described in seeing the emotional intensity is so valid, so real. You know, what I always tell my patients when they say, well, Liz, how do I know if it's OCD or not? My response is like, what's the difference between OCD and other thoughts that aren't OCD? And the big difference for us is always the urgency, right? With OCD, it feels urgent, it feels critical, it feels like life or death, it feels like you have to engage immediately. And you know, what he described and what Chris is showing is exactly how OCD often looks, right? Is we have these rituals that we have to go do, and actually as soon as we start the ritual, and we're doing the ritual to try to feel better, so as soon as we start it because we want to feel better, we end up feeling worse because more stuff happens, right? The paper towels didn't come out the right way, or we accidentally touched this, or my hand touched the sink, and all of us with contamination can resonate with that exact same scenario that Chris just showed. And so it's really real. And what Chris described perfectly that I want everybody to recognize is that you don't enjoy it. You can see, even when he's just showing what he used to do, how much pain, discomfort, shame, right? We're hiding from people. I made up, we become the best actors and actresses. We make up a million excuses to cover up what we're doing and why we're doing it. You come up with like a million things to say and to tell people because you know what you're doing makes no sense, but at the same time, you don't feel like you can stop.
So we are headed to what I call the Villardo House. So I rarely ever go to this house at all. It's just super heavy for me because this house like represents isolation for me. I'm an extrovert who loves people. And I had lost pretty much all my friends at this point. My roommate didn't talk to me. I wasn't spending time with family. I was just kind of isolated 16 hours a day in my house. But besides sleep, I quit my job, I quit school. I was living off of savings that were dwindling, and I just felt extremely, extremely helpless. And, you know, it's been hard, obviously, living in the same city where I think it was a mixture of things. I mean, I think the suicide attempt, obviously, was the heaviest, but more than that, to me at the time, actually, the suicide attempt felt like a relief. It felt like finally just, you know, getting my life back. I was not life back, but like finally just having my mind be quiet. But It was just watching your friend and your family relationships just dwindle and be non-existent. And just like depression to the point where I didn't eat for days, didn't drink water, didn't take care of myself, and was like a shell of myself. So going to this house has always been heavy, and it's just 4 walls, but it feels very different than that. It feels like it has a story. I can't even give anybody like positive memories. I don't have like, oh my God, it was so fun moving out, tee-hee. It's like, no, it's right here. It's the window that I used to live in, right there. Whew, okay, just give me a second. I like never walked by it before. I think like the first time I ever drove by it was just to make sure it was even real. It's just crazy because that's like, it's just crazy because there's like no good memories. You can't really see it, but my bedroom window's there, and I think the craziest part of this, the whole thing, is just seeing that garage, because that's where I did it. Like, you just ask yourself, like, how does your mental health get so tattered to the point that you just don't even want to live? Yeah, so I eventually quit my job, so I wasn't working anymore. I quit school. I mean, I was always an A student. And then when OCD hit, I had a lot of perfectionism around my school. Things had to be done a certain way to be turned in. I would recheck, you know, my paper, was it spelled correctly? And just, it was so overwhelming, I just wouldn't do work. So it eventually got to a point like my whole life was in this house. But yeah, a typical day was usually waking up exhausted like around 9:45, and then just a flood of thoughts. Just feeling extremely like contaminated and gross and like unhealthy, and just, I don't know how to describe it. Like something felt wrong with my health, something felt wrong with like cleanliness. And so I would wake up and it was a lot of ritualistic just to decontaminate myself. So that would look like going in the bathroom, and each day I had to use a brand new hand soap. I never used the same hand soap twice. So it was like opening a brand new hand soap, but having to open it with these fingers, because I would, you know, these fingers were clean, and I would hold the hand soap and set it down and pump with those hands and wash my hands. And then once they were clean, then I could touch that stuff for the day. But it was spending, you know, half an hour, 30 minutes, 45 minutes just to do my pre-cleaning rituals. And then it was getting in the shower. And the showering was never good enough. It was scrubbing every last part of my body, making sure all of it was going over my body, standing in front of the mirror, making sure there was soap on my back. A lot of times I felt like the shower curtain was dirty, so I had to like open it, wash my hands, close it, wash my hands. And then there was a lot of time in laundry when I still could do laundry. So I would throw in laundry and be washing it all day. It was weird. I couldn't put like clothes away. I thought they would get dirty overnight. So just a lot of washing in the laundry. And all this stuff would fill 16 to 18 hours a day. And then it was time to go to bed. And I had this weird superstitious kind of like magical thinking thing where I had to be in bed by 12:45, because if I wasn't, something bad would happen the next day. So I'd get in bed at like 12:15 and just stare at the clock. And then when it hit 12:45, immediately roll over, close my eyes, and then I was in bed. And then my alarm would go off at 9:45 because I needed 9 hours of sleep in order for something bad not to happen. And back then it made sense. Right now, speaking out loud, it just doesn't make any kind of logical sense. But to me, it's like when your brain is so obsessive and heightened state of fear, you just will do anything to calm your body down. So when people think of panic attacks, it's like, well, with OCD, you're having a panic attack pretty much all day. And the only way to stop the panic attack is to do those rituals to calm you down. But I mean, just that every single day for years and years, and 3 years of it being almost no contact with other people.
You know, I think that one of the common components of OCD is avoidance. And what happens is the more we become triggered and the worse our OCD is, the more isolated we become because we start to avoid people, places, and things, right? The situations, events, or places that make us anxious or that we know we might experience a trigger. And so in turn, you become more and more isolated. In addition to that, there's shame, there's embarrassment, there's stigma. Your friends aren't going to understand what you're going through. Your family members, half of them don't understand what you're going through. A lot of times they've lost a lot of the empathy because they're living in the middle of it. It's exhausting for them as well. And so it cannot just, not only does OCD stop you from being able to find the joy and the pleasure that you used to find in everyday activities, it also increases isolation because you eventually start to isolate and your world becomes smaller as you try to keep it safe. And what you find is that the smaller it becomes, the more unsafe it becomes also, right? Because the more we try to keep these safe zones or these OCD-free places, the worse we feel because we're more depressed, we're more isolated, and those places will also eventually become contaminated or, triggering.
It's just insane. I don't know how to describe it. It just feels very lightheaded, very surreal. Whew. So this is like the first time I have ever walked by it. It feels so wrong to be here. Ooh. That room right there, that was my window. But I didn't even like open the blinds or anything because I just housed myself in. Oh, it's a lot harder than I thought. Like, I don't get anxious very often anymore. Like, I'm not an anxious person, but I feel extremely overwhelmed. Like, it's just that window. It's just like hours just stuck in a room. And it's like I always had the blinds closed because I just felt so depressed and I didn't want people to see me. I didn't want to even be connected to the outside world. So even though there's like a window right there, I just never looked out of it. There's a bay window right there, I never looked out of it. I think the garage is the hardest to see, obviously. And so when my roommate was gone, I moved all of the stuff out of the garage. Well, not moved it out, I moved it to the side so you could pull a car in there. And I remember driving into the garage and stuffing like just like a rag in the exhaust pipe. I just remember running my car, probably about 5 minutes or something in. I just didn't know if I could really do it. So I got out and I remember I went inside the house and went to just a mirror and just kind of looked at myself and was wondering if I was really gonna do it. But I didn't feel human at that point. I remember looking at my reflection back and it didn't feel real. It didn't feel real. And that was kind of like my last ditch effort to almost talk myself out of it, but I just remember thinking like, you're finally gonna be at peace. And I was so disconnected from family, from myself, from people that there was like no part of me like a fight. So I just went back in my car and ran my car. It's extremely blurry. All I remember is being passed out in my car and having somebody banging on my door. And it was my roommate who came home. And she was very confused. She's like, what are you doing? And I don't think she had any idea my mental health was as bad as it was, because we just at this point just didn't talk. We're isolated. I remember being extremely embarrassed and extremely angry at like, I thought I finally had a solution to all this stuff. I just remember going to the hospital and lying. I was in my car. I wanted to get some stuff from my car, and I was playing the radio, listening to music, and I fell asleep. And I don't think the doctor bought it, because I just remember him talking to me about, you need to live with people. He asked me, who do you live with? I just remember that was the question that he asked, like, who do you live with? And I just said, I felt I like kind of live alone. I have a roommate, but we don't talk. And he talked to me about needing to move in with people because it wasn't safe to live alone. And I didn't tell anybody until I always remember I was in the dining room at my mom's house. And I just finally had to tell somebody what was going on. And I just remember telling my mom, and she kind of finished the words for me. She's like, wait, did you try to kill yourself? And I remember admitting, yes, I did. And she asked me, do I still want to kill myself? And I said, yes, I do. And my mom did not have the reaction I thought. At this point, I was so disconnected from myself that I thought my mom was going to kind of be like, well, okay, like, and not really have a reaction, but my mom broke down. And at that moment, I knew I couldn't take my life again, because I saw what my mom's reaction was, and I just knew that she wouldn't be able to live and move on if I had taken my life. And so that's when I just needed help. I didn't know what to do. I felt like if I'm gonna live, because I have to live for my mom, but I can't live like this anymore. Like, my mind is messed up. It's negative. It tells me to kill myself. It tells me you're not worthy. It's obsessive. It fixates on not just cleanliness, but harm, and just all these different intrusive thoughts and images, and they'd stick in my brain, and I just wanted them gone. I think the hardest part is I don't think the garage doors changed. I remember that exact same garage style, so it looks the same way it looked that night. And like I said, it's just so weird. It's so weird. I just didn't know I was gonna have this reaction.